We split a rock. Oh! On this channel, I tend to review and test a lot of expensive knives that I like. Today, we're going to go the other direction, and we're actually going to test and review some knives that you can get very inexpensively that I also like. Today, I have the Cold Steel Pendleton Light Hunter. I have the Morakniv Companion. This one's in carbon steel, and I have an HK Outdoors knife. So we're going to test all three of these. We're going to see which one does the best, and the loser is going to get destructive testing until it gives up. So let's have some fun with these. We're going to have some good fun with knives today. First, a word about sharpening. I sharpened these as near as I could, all the same way. If you want to see how I do my sharpening pre-test, I have a video about that, so I won't go into it now. But as close as possible, they are as equally sharp as I could make them. Standardized sharpening method, right? First test is going to be batoning, since these are outdoor knives. Let's get right into testing. There's number one with the Morakniv. All these pieces of stick were cut from the same limb. So as close as possible, again, to what I could make them. To be equal anyway. So there is the Morakniv. Pretty good, actually. Again, not too surprising. This is a Scandi grind knife, so it's kind of designed to wedge into things like this. Overall, pretty good. Let's try the other two. Here is the Cold Steel. That was the Cold Steel. That actually went through that wood easier than I thought it would. The hollow grind is not necessarily something you associate with batoning, but it did wedge it apart pretty well, and I don't really see any edge damage. We'll test the edge after each round here. Last, we have the HK. All right, so that was the batoning test. After it, now I'm going to test the sharpness by just cutting through this paper just to see if there's a noticeable difference. So again, first, the Mora. Still cutting nicely. Here is the Cold Steel, same order we did them in. Small dull spot right there. It's pretty good, but maybe a slight dull spot right there. And then here is the HK. Okay. Okay, so there's definitely a pretty large dull spot right here on this one. So as you can see on the HK, there's definitely a large dull spot there on that one place. Cold Steel had a little tiny bit of a dull spot, but not too bad. And the Mora was still pretty sharp. So first test, first place is the Morakniv. Second place is the Cold Steel. Third place is the HK. Since I now have all this wonderful kindling and it would be a shame to waste it, my next test is going to be a feather sticking test with all this. So I'm going to take one of these sticks per knife. I'm going to do 100 feather sticks into it, and then we're going to test the sharpness again. Here we go with the Morakniv. All right, so there we are with the Morakniv. That was pretty easy to do. I did get a little bit of hand cramping, but the handle was nice and smooth, didn't rub any spots, so pretty good job there. Here we go with the Cold Steel. You can kind of see as I'm doing it, it wants to slip and it wants to cut off all my feathers. Whereas the Mora, I didn't have to be nearly as careful when I was working through into that wood. Last, we have the HK. Here we go. New piece of wood. This one is definitely the hardest of the three. I'm having to push a lot harder because there's a lot more meat behind this edge. It doesn't have the benefit of the hollow grind of the cold steel making it thinner, and it also doesn't have the wide grip of the Mora. So right away, this is the most effort of all the three to do this with. All right, here are the sticks that I've made with the knives. This is the Morakniv, which is actually pretty good. This is the cold steel. You can see those feathers aren't quite as deep or as good, so it wouldn't burn as well there. And here is the HK. That one pretty much sucks. There's not a lot of feathering, and they wanted to chip off and stuff because the knife kept slipping. So Morakniv really did the best there. All right, same thing after the test. We're going to do a sharpness test. Morakniv first. That is still very sharp, right where we were doing the feather sticking. Cold steel is next. Here we go. That is really good. There's maybe one little hang up right there. And now the HK. Oh boy, that's very dull. Yeah, so you can see this knife is tearing the paper really rather than slicing through it. So much more dulling going on this knife than the other two. I washed all these knives, and one thing I wanted to point out was the Morakniv, although it's doing the best so far as performance, the carbon steel is starting to rust after that much contact with wood and me just kind of washing it, wiping it down, but not super drying it. The other knives obviously are not rusting at all. So while this is doing the best so far in edge retention and kind of holding up to the tests, it is definitely not corrosion resistant. All right, so last test, I'm going to prep half of an onion with each one of these knives and see how they do. So here we go. Morakniv is going first. That's going through nice and smoothly. You can see I'm getting a very easy, consistent dice on that onion. That's a pretty good job. This is the thinner version. This is the companion that's not the robust. So that edge isn't wedging them apart like you would expect from a wider knife. Next, we have the cold steel. This is a thicker blade, so it's a little bit more wedging into the onion. A little bit more effort to get in there, but not terrible. And then we'll go with the dice. This is actually a little easier and more precise on the dice because it has that hollow grind. So I would say this one is probably doing a little bit of a better job on the onion. I would prefer to use this, also because it's not rusting. Last, once again, is the HK. We got to split this onion still. There we go. And you can see this is a very thick blade. And it's wedging it apart a little bit more than the cold steel. A little bit more effort into that. And then we'll go with the dice. So this is a little harder to do the dicing with, mostly because it's lost so much of its edge already. So it's more effort. I'm getting a lot more off-gassing from the onion, making me cry a little bit more because it's not as sharp. All right, so on this one, I would say Cold Steel first place, Morakniv second place, HK once again third place. So I think we have our winner, which would be the Mora. I would probably recommend the stainless steel version, unless you're doing food prep. So this is kind of more of a bushcraft oriented knife, and it is a better bushcrafter. This is kind of more of a skinning and prepping knife. So I would put that as the best one for those things. And this is just a cheaper knife, right? It's 5CR15 steel. It just didn't hold up as well. So this is our loser. This is our winner. And this is the one that we're now going to abuse a bit and see how much it takes to actually break a knife that is this thick. Here we go. Here is our unfortunate loser. This is the HK Outdoors knife. So I'm going to baton it into and then chop it into this copper pipe, and then we'll do some other tests for it. So here we go. Surprisingly good work so far. It's not bending or anything. Do a little bit more, and then we'll do some concrete. All right, this is a bag of concrete that has been left in the water. So what we have is essentially concrete. Yeah. Once again, doing a better job than I thought it would. This is the densest spot right here. That's actually pretty good. We cracked that whole thing open. All right, there it is after concrete. Tip is definitely scratched up. And we have got a pretty good bend going on in the tip right there. After all that, we're not broken yet though. So the test is not over. Now we are entering the realm of true stupidity and attacking a rock. This is a piece of sandstone. There we go. We split a rock with a knife. That is truly stupid. And they did it again. That's amazing. So while this didn't hold a good edge, it is extremely tough. There we are. Lots of gashes. I think it's a little bit crooked now. We definitely still have that kick to the tip. We are getting close, ladies and gents. Since this knife has, against all odds, survived everything I've tried to do with it so far, I am going to hammer it into this giant stump with the 3-pound sledge and then knock it sideways and try to break off chunks of this giant stump with this silly little knife. Oh, all right. There it is, folks. We finally broke the knife. It is finally done, but that was an incredible test. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you want to see more videos like this, do a comment below. Check out the links for these knives from the comments. Some I would recommend and some I would not. Have a knife day.